Island Lighthouse, a beacon of history and haunting. Just off the rugged southern coast of Maine, amid the turbulent waters of the Gulf of Maine, lies a desolate speck of granite and scrub called Boon Island. Only about 700 feet long and 300 feet wide, it seems an unlikely place to hold any significance, let alone a lighthouse that has inspired both admiration and dread. But Boon Island is no ordinary rock. Its very name conjures images of desperation and tragedy. Its lighthouse, the tallest in New England at 133 feet, stands as a stark sentinel, not just for passing mariners, but as a monument to hardship, shipwreck, survival, and the spectral echoes of its past. Located roughly 6 miles off the coast of York, Maine, Boon Island Lighthouse is steeped in history and seafaring lore. For over 2 centuries, this granite column has defied the relentless Atlantic, warning sailors of the dangers that lurk just beneath the waves. Yet, for all its practical utility, Boon Island Lighthouse is also wrapped in an aura of mystery. Shipwrecks, deaths, and tales of cannibalism have left behind more than salt stains and seagull droppings. They've seeded rumours of ghosts and strange happenings that persist to this day. What makes Boon Island truly unique is not just its isolated location or towering height, but the grim stories woven into its foundation. From its earliest colonial history to modern ghost hunting tales, this lighthouse embodies the very essence of Maine's maritime past, a mixture of beauty, brutality, and the unexplained. The Gulf of Maine is one of the most perilous maritime regions in North America. Its rocky floor and submerged reefs, paired with swift tidal currents and rapidly changing weather conditions, have created a natural gauntlet for sailors over the centuries. The region is often blanketed in thick fog, which reduces visibility to near zero, even in daylight. Add to that the high frequency of nor'easters, intense storms that churn up the Atlantic along the eastern seaboard, and you have the perfect setting for nautical catastrophe. Boon Island lies roughly 6 miles off the coast of York, Maine, in a direct line with common shipping lanes used by fishing vessels, merchant ships, and more recently, pleasure craft. While modern GPS systems have made navigation safer, the early mariners of the 17th and 18th centuries had little more than compasses and rudimentary charts. The unlit, low-lying profile of Boon Island meant that ships often spotted it too late, if at all. It lurked like a dagger beneath the surface, claiming hulls and lives with chilling consistency. The island's name, ironically, comes from an act of compassion. In the late 1600s, after a shipwreck left men stranded without food or supplies, a subsequent expedition returned to leave behind provisions, a boon for anyone else who might be unlucky enough to wash ashore. The gesture was noble, but over time the island became anything but generous. By the early 18th century, Boon Island had earned an ominous reputation. It was commonly referred to in shiplogs as the graveyard of the Atlantic. Local sailors told stories of hearing cries on the wind as they passed in the night, and many captains would alter their course to avoid it, even at the cost of time and fuel. The colony of Massachusetts Bay, which then administered coastal Maine, attempted several modest efforts to mark the location. Wooden stakes, signal fires, and day marks were placed on the island, but each attempt was destroyed by wind, waves, or rot. It wasn't until the disastrous wreck of the Nottingham Galley in 1710 and the shocking tale of cannibalism that followed that the need for a permanent navigational structure was seriously considered. In hindsight, the island's deadly combination of geography and weather made it an inevitable site for tragedy. Yet, even with the addition of the lighthouse decades later, Boon Island's history of wrecks, hauntings, and hardship would only grow. The lighthouse was a beacon, yes, but also a marker of the deep, dangerous cost of navigating the Maine coast. The island's name, ironically, comes from an act of kindness. In the late 1600s, a shipwreck prompted rescuers to leave behind supplies, or a boon for any future castaways. But few today would associate the island with charity. Over time, it became synonymous with tragedy. Early colonial governments attempted to place beacons or day marks, but nothing survived the elements. It wasn't until after a devastating shipwreck in 1710 that efforts to mark the island grew serious. The most infamous and horrific chapter in Boon Island's history began on December 11th, 1710, when the British merchant vessel Nottingham Galley struck the rocks during a winter storm. The ship was en route from England to Boston with a cargo of cordage, sailcloth, and general goods. Commanded by Captain John Dean, the ship was battered by a nor'easter and driven onto Boon Island's jagged shore. There was no lighthouse then, no beacon, just bone-chilling wind, freezing spray, and a cruel expanse of bare rock. Miraculously, all 14 men aboard survived the wreck itself, but their nightmare was only beginning. Stranded without shelter, fresh water, or food in the dead of a New England winter, the crew huddled together against the cold and surf. For nearly a month they endured hypothermia, frostbite, starvation, and the ever-present roar of the Atlantic. Desperate for nourishment, the men resorted to eating raw mussels and even seaweed. But it wasn't enough. One by one, the weakest succumbed to the elements. When their ship's cook died, the remaining men, driven by unthinkable desperation, resorted to cannibalism, consuming the body to stay alive. The survivors were eventually rescued by local fishermen, and the incident caused a scandal on both sides of the Atlantic. Captain Dean later published an account of the ordeal, but his reputation was forever tarnished. Some accused him of cowardice, or worse, suggesting the cannibalism may not have been entirely necessary. The accusations led to lawsuits, public shaming, and endless retellings of the story. This single event cemented Boon Island's reputation as a place of dread. The cannibalism scandal made headlines for years and was cited in sea shanties, newspapers, and even court documents. Today, it's seen as one of the most gruesome survival stories in American maritime history. Many believe the trauma of that event still lingers. Fishermen and lighthouse keepers have reported strange occurrences on the island. Eerie voices in the wind, the feeling of being watched, and sudden cold spots, even in the warmth of summer. Some say it's the restless spirits of those who died on Boon Island, or worse, those who were consumed there, still crying out in the sea spray. The need for a lighthouse on Boon Island became undeniable. In 1799, a 32-foot wooden tower was built, the first official attempt to provide a warning light. But the sea quickly destroyed it. In 1811, another light was constructed, this time from rubble stone, but it too succumbed to weather. The current structure, built in 1855, is a towering column of interlocked granite blocks designed to endure. Its construction was grueling. Materials had to be shipped across choppy seas. Workers lived in harsh conditions, assembling the structure under relentless wind and rain. But the finished tower, with its first-order Fresnel lens, projected light for 19 miles, a powerful warning to ships. Boon Island's lighthouse wasn't just a technological feat, it was a lifeline. Yet for those who lived there, the isolation could be maddening. Lighthouse keepers on Boon Island were a special breed. Cut off from the world, they lived in a stone dwelling beside the tower, tending the light, recording logs, and surviving. Storms sometimes prevented resupply for weeks. Food spoiled, water ran low, and any medical emergency could become fatal. One keeper described hallucinations during a prolonged isolation. Another went temporarily blind from constant exposure to the lamp's glare. Yet they persevered. Logs detail repairs done in high winds, rescue attempts during storms, and grueling routines of cleaning, polishing, and watching. But they also mention strange occurrences. Noises from empty rooms, phantom footsteps, sudden temperature drops. Some keepers dismissed it as isolation-induced paranoia. Others recorded the events in private journals never meant to be seen. In the Coast Guard era, some refused reassignment to Boon Island, citing the atmosphere. Boon Island's dangerous reputation isn't just legend. The harsh conditions surrounding the island and the lighthouse have directly contributed to numerous tragic events, each one adding a darker hue to the island's legacy. Records confirm that several lighthouse personnel have died during their service. One of the most infamous incidents involved a keeper in the 1860s who was caught in a violent storm while attempting to secure a small supply boat that had come loose from its moorings. In the chaos, he slipped on the slick rocks and was swept into the sea before the eyes of his horrified assistant. His body never recovered. Another tragedy struck in the early 1900s when a supply ship attempted a routine delivery amid a brewing storm. As waves rose higher, the boat struck a submerged rock and capsized. The crew scrambled for the island, but only one man made it ashore. The rest were claimed by the frigid water. This lone survivor later reported hearing the names of his drowned crewmates whispered by the wind on stormy nights. In the 1930s, a lighthouse keeper began experiencing severe depression after months of isolation. With no way off the island and no relief crew due to weather delays, he was found by his assistant one morning in the tower's storage room, dead by suicide. This event triggered a change in policy, ensuring that no keeper would be left entirely alone on the island again. World War II also left its mark. In 1944, a US Navy observation plane crashed in thick fog near Boon Island during a coastal patrol. While not directly tied to lighthouse operations, debris washed ashore days later, including a torn pilot's log and fragments of uniforms. Locals believe the spirits of the lost crew still linger, sometimes appearing as uniformed figures pacing near the tower's base in the mist. The lighthouse itself has become a source of intrigue. Visitors and paranormal researchers have captured unexplained sounds in the tower's interior, clangs and thuds with no origin, moaning winds when there is no breeze, and whispers recorded on high-sensitivity microphones. Skeptics argue that the granite structure's acoustics and the island's exposure to wind and sea create a perfect storm for misinterpreted sounds. But even seasoned skeptics report a strange sense of being watched, especially near the tower at dusk. Whether grounded in psychological effects, environmental anomalies, or genuine paranormal phenomena, Boon Island's legacy is steeped in sorrow. The confirmed deaths, tragic accidents, and eerie sightings serve as chilling reminders that the island has never been just a place. It's an experience, a cautionary tale, and for some, a haunting memory. Kenneth Roberts' 1956 novel, Boon Island, fictionalized the Nottingham Galley disaster, cementing the island's place in American maritime culture. Numerous historical texts and ghost anthologies feature Boon Island prominently. Legends tell of phantom lights appearing in the fog long after the lighthouse automation. Fishermen claim to hear voices calling from the waves or see figures pacing the parapet. Local tour guides include Boon Island stories in ghost walks in York and Kittery. While few people visit the island itself, it's difficult and dangerous to reach. The tales continue to grow, generation after generation. In 1980, the US Coast Guard automated Boon Island Light. The last human keepers left, and the building has stood empty ever since. Now solar-powered, the light flashes for passing ships, but no one is there to see it. Years of abandonment have taken a toll. Salt air eats at the metal. Storms erode the granite base. Preservationists fear that without attention, this iconic structure could fall into ruin. Yet its emptiness only adds to the myth. Drone footage shows an eerie quiet, wind blowing through the broken windows, seabirds circling, the ocean pounding the shore like a funeral drum. People say the lighthouse still remembers the past. Modern ghost hunters and paranormal researchers have made rare but revealing visits to Boon Island. Because of the island's remote and hazardous nature, these investigations are few and far between, often requiring Coast Guard approval or coordination with preservation groups. Yet, the findings they bring back are consistently chilling. One of the most talked about expeditions occurred in 2006, when a team of investigators from a New England-based paranormal group braved a 2-night stay on the island. Armed with meters, thermal cameras, and audio recording devices, the group reported multiple unexplained phenomena. Among them, cold spots detected in the base of the tower despite mild ambient temperatures, the sound of rhythmic tapping echoing from the top of the lighthouse when no one was inside, and a bone-chilling recording that appeared to capture the words, "I can't leave," whispered in a desperate tone. Another investigation in 2014 by a well-known YouTube paranormal channel documented a night of equipment malfunctions, with batteries draining inexplicably, motion sensors activating without physical triggers, and unexplained footsteps recorded both on video and audio. The team also reported a fleeting shadow seen pacing in the upper catwalk of the lantern room, despite the tower being locked and vacant. Even non-paranormal visitors have left the island disturbed. A team of historians conducting restoration work in 2018 described a palpable sense of unease in the dwelling quarters. One member claimed to hear a door slam repeatedly in the windless stillness of early dawn, while another felt as if someone was standing behind him during solo work in the storage building. Maritime folklorists note that the residual energy claimed to exist on Boon Island fits the profile of a trauma echo, a theory suggesting that emotionally charged events, such as those endured by the Nottingham Galley survivors, imprint themselves on physical environments. These echoes may manifest as apparitions, sounds, or sensations replaying like a loop. Interestingly, electronic anomalies also extend to the air above the island. Drone operators have reported GPS and compass interference, unexplained altitude drops, and in some cases, total shutdown mid-flight. One operator noted that his drone refused to fly near the tower's peak, consistently redirecting itself despite manual override. Skeptics attribute much of the activity to the power of suggestion, wind dynamics, or the psychological effects of isolation. However, even seasoned professionals have walked away from Boon Island unable or unwilling to explain what they experienced. In the realm of paranormal study, Boon Island has earned a quiet but powerful reputation. It is not flashy or commercialized. There are no gift shops or ghost tours leading directly to its shores. And perhaps that is what makes it all the more unsettling. It exists in isolation, like the phenomena it hosts, dark, remote, and disturbingly persistent. Visiting Boon Island Lighthouse is not a simple affair. There are no public ferries or guided tours, and access is limited due to the treacherous waters and fragile state of the site. However, adventurous boaters or licensed historical researchers occasionally make the journey under ideal weather conditions. For those who wish to support the preservation of this iconic maritime relic without stepping foot on the island, donations can be made to the American Lighthouse Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to saving and restoring historic lighthouses along the East Coast. ALF oversees the stewardship of dozens of endangered lights, including efforts to monitor and preserve Boon Island light. Supporting such organizations helps ensure that these beacons and the stories they hold continue to shine for generations to come. Boon Island Lighthouse remains a powerful symbol of Maine's maritime past, its bravery, its isolation, and its darkness. The light still flashes, keeping its lonely vigil. But for many, it also signals something deeper. It represents endurance, the stubborn refusal to fall. But it also speaks to human limits, of what happens when people are pushed too far, alone and afraid. Whether you're drawn by the architecture, the ghost stories, or the chilling history, Boon Island delivers an unforgettable experience. It's a place where the sea meets the soul, and the past refuses to stay buried.